I'm going to share 11 money rules that made me a multimillionaire. These aren't your typical hacks, but rules that helped me go from streets of Mumbai to boardrooms of companies that created over $60 billion in value. So let's get into it. My first money rule is to get in the right headspace. HEAD, or H-E-A-D, stands for hope, extraction, abundance, and discipline. Let's start with hope. As humans, we live in hope, don't we? It is our driving force. It reminds me of an actor who has made more money than Tom Cruise. You've probably never heard of him. He is this superstar from India and his name is Shah Rukh Khan. And he has such an incredibly positive, hopeful mindset. He says, when the movie gets released on Friday and I realize my movie is a big, giant, super hit, everybody is high-fiving. The entire weekend is a celebration. But come Monday, I go back to work to make a better movie. And if I make a flop, Friday is a disaster. I spend the entire weekend crying. But come Monday, I get back to work to make a better movie. That's what life is about. It's about moving forward to the next play with hope, regardless of success or failure. That mindset about focusing on tomorrow is super important for building wealth. Next is E, for extraction. Everybody has these demons of self-doubt. I have them. They cloud our emotional reality. Thoughts like, I'll never have enough money, or I'll never be good enough, or money is evil. But all of that is just a voice in your head. None of that is true. You know, when I was growing up in Mumbai, I applied to this university in Boston. I got in with full scholarship. And yet, the visa officer in Mumbai rejected my visa because I did not even have $200 to buy a one-way ticket from Mumbai to Boston. I remember crying in front of my dad that evening, and we both felt like failures. And fast forward to today, I'm surrounded by some of the most powerful minds in the world of technology and finance. The key is to extract and pull out these toxic beliefs that tell you that we're not worth it, that we're meant to fail. Replace them. Replace them with positive mantras. Next, after E comes A, which stands for abundance. Now, being rich and feeling rich are two entirely different things. Take Rajat Gupta, CEO of McKinsey. It's one of the most haloed and powerful consulting firms in the world. And he was on the board of Goldman Sachs, Procter & Gamble. He used to advise Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. And I think he was already worth about $130 million when he got involved in an insider trading scandal. And he went to prison and lost it all. His money, his fame, his reputation, his influence. So you've got to know when enough is enough. The next is D. D stands for discipline. Getting rich is hard, but staying rich is much harder. It requires a different type of discipline, a different type of humility. Mike Tyson was once worth $400 million, but he made poor choices. He trusted the wrong kind of people, and he went bankrupt, from $400 million to bankruptcy. Kanye West, he's worth about $2 billion, but nearly lost all of it. Both Tyson and Kanye eventually recovered and they course corrected. But the lesson we can learn from all of this is that if you cultivate the headspace, you will have emotional wealth. And when you have emotional wealth, the financial wealth will follow. That's how the world works. Rule number 2 is the rule of 25x. Understand it and manage your burn rate. When it comes to financial planning, Gen Z beats out boomers. Nearly 70% of Gen Z today feel they are on track or even slightly ahead in terms of retirement saving. Only 50% of boomers feel that way. So what's the difference? Is the 25x rule. Here's how it works. Figure out how much your expense is every year. What do you spend on over the entire year? Multiply that number by 25. That's the total amount of investment that you must have before you can retire. Why 25x? It's based on this 4% rule, which states that if your investments are generating on average 6% return, you can safely withdraw 4% each year and you will not run out of cash. So let's do an example and keep the numbers simple. Let's say your annual expenses are $40,000. 40,000 times 25, that's 1 million. That investment in the market on a typical year should return $60,000. And you can withdraw $40,000 and spend. That's your magic number to achieve financial independence. Now, please remember, markets will fluctuate. For example, if the market is returning 2% in a given year and you try to withdraw 4%, you're already behind now, right? Because you're eating into your investment. And there are years when the market is going to just completely tank. In 2008, it went down by 50%. I remember. It was painful. The key takeaway here is to manage your burn rate, not just your earn rate, because 80% of our financial success comes from what we don't end up buying. Next, rule number 3, plan for Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will. Stop focusing only on financial future. Start planning for financial failures. I was a C-level executive at a terrific company, and rarely have I seen such a phenomenal product. And I ran sales and marketing, account management, customer success, solutions engineering. And our next product launch was supposed to be a game changer, and we were super excited about it. And then everything changed. A database bug caused a severe delay, couldn't fix it in time, the launch never came, our customers got really mad, and we lost trust. I don't think we ever recovered after that setback. The customers left, I lost my job, and over time, the company kind of faded away into oblivion. These things happen to the best of us. Life will throw its curveballs, and that's why you need your emergency fund. Aim for having at least 6 months worth of living expenses tucked away somewhere, and don't touch it. Moving on to rule number 4, love your luck. But what if I told you there is a way to engineer your luck? And by that, I mean do everything that maximizes your ability to be lucky. Be in as many right places as you can be, with the right skills, surrounded by the right people, and the right time will come. You might say, that's not about money, but it absolutely is. If you're not swinging the bat every single time, the home run you're hoping for may never come. I love the story of Nick Jonas. He was just 6 and sitting in a hair salon with his mom, who was getting her hair done. And he was just sitting there getting bored, and so he started singing to amuse himself, and a woman, who was also a customer in the same salon, overheard him singing. And she walked up to Nick's mom and said, hey, listen, you have to contact this talent manager, and he's looking for kids who can sing. Nick obviously had mad skills to sing like that, that compelled that woman to walk to his mom. But what led to an incredible career in music and movies was a complete accident. These stories highlight how chance can shape and lead to your career breakthroughs, because luck loves to reward hustle. Rule number 5 is super important. Always play the long game. This one thing I'm gonna tell you is your ticket to long-term financial success. Imagine you start investing $400 every month in S&P or some index fund, and you start at the age of 21 and you continue it until you retire at 67. You will have over $1.7 million when you retire. Now, you may have heard about this idea before, but here's the crazy part. Your total out-of-pocket contribution in your final retirement fund is just about $220,000. That's it. So where did the rest of the $1.5 million come from? That's the long game I'm talking about. That's the magic of compounding. That's money making money while you're asleep. So start early and automate your investments. Make it a ritual, and then be patient, because your money will grow very slowly at first, and it will compound very quickly at the end. Next, rule number 6, you need to become the CFO of your own life. I have said in hundreds of corporate board meetings, and in every single board meeting, one thing is absolutely certain. The CFO, or the Chief Financial Officer, will face the toughest questions from the board about cash flow, burn rate, capital allocation, hiring costs, hundreds of other metrics. You know, a CFO once told me after our board meeting, and it was a tough board meeting for him because, the board pressured him for answers that he didn't have. And he said, man, it was more painful than going through a surgery without anesthesia. Every successful company needs a good CFO to steer the company towards profitable growth. The same should apply to our financial life. Treat your personal finance with the same discipline and rigor of a CFO. Here are the 3 things that you can start doing today. 1, create a monthly or quarterly financial statement for your personal finance. Don't need to track every penny, but you should know generally where your money is going. Do you really need all 5 streaming subscriptions? Do you have to have the most expensive espresso in town every day? So you'll learn from it. You'll start adjusting. You'll start optimizing. Number 2, don't get bogged down with perfection. What if you don't know Excel or Google Sheets? That's okay. Make a bullet list in a document, or use apps like Mint, or you need a budget. It's all good. Start small, keep it simple. And number 3, set up 3 key automations. Automate bill payments, automate savings, and automate investing. That's it. Take the human emotion out of it. Once all 3 are automated, whatever is left is yours to spend. Okay, next up is rule number 7. Don't shy away from using the F word. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house that he bought in the 50s. The founder of IKEA flies economy and drives old beat-up Volvo. And Keanu Reeves is frequently seen taking the New York City subways. So what's the common thread here? The F word is frugality. Modest living is the best way to become wealthy. Turn off that consumer brain. And there's a deeper idea here too. We all know that true happiness comes from having incredible experiences and deep relationships, right? It does not come from owning things. The things you own end up owning you. So learn to be frugal, and please learn to find joy in things that money can't buy. Next, we're on to rule number 8. Understand when debt is good and when it's bad. Most people don't know this, but not all debt is bad. There is a company that I'm working with right now, and the CEO told me that he took a significant amount of debt to fund an acquisition. I was surprised because they had cash, they could have used equity, but they went the third way. And when I dug in and I had this conversation with their CFO, I realized that it was a very smart move. If you had bought a house in January of 2021, you would have locked in the mortgage rate of around 2.7%. Pretty low, pretty good. But if you bought the same house in October of 2022, the mortgage rate would be over 7%. The first one is a very wise move. The second one is incredibly risky. You've got to know when the time is right. And think of debt like fire. Good debt can keep you warm. Bad debt burns your house down. That brings me to rule number 9. Be an investor, not a gambler. Invest like you were in Silicon Valley, not like you were in Vegas. A good friend of mine, who was a great CEO, took his company public. And the IPO was amazing. His net worth was tied to his company's stock, so obviously he became very wealthy. Even post-IPO, the company was doing very well. But then the market crashed, and his stock plummeted from 70 to pennies. And he couldn't even sell because he was in this lockout period. So he had to just sit there and watch his entire network drop from over 7 million to less than $70,000. That's why we have to learn from the venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. They diversify to spread their risk. So how do we as individuals diversify? Think of a 3-tier pyramid. So at the base is your emergency fund, cash and bonds for a rainy day. And it's not gonna make you a lot of money. But it's important to have a very strong base, a very strong foundation, so you can take calculated risks with the rest of it. The middle of the pyramid is the moderate risk investments. For most of us, that portion is going to be the biggest part of our pyramid. Index funds, 401ks, ETFs. This is where you aim for that long-term steady growth. And on top, that's about 5 to 10% of your total portfolio. You will take higher risks. That's the swinging of the bat that I'm talking about. There is a potential for greater reward, but the risks are higher. So start with a strong base and build out the middle and go to the top only as your income and wealth starts growing. And no matter what you do, don't end up with an inverted pyramid where your base is so thin and at the top you're exposed to so much risk. Remember, Investors, spread the risk. Gamblers, go all in. The next rule is number 10. Invest in your financial education. If you want to be financially free, you've got to be financially fluent. Studies have shown that high school students who took personal finance classes during their high school years ended up with a much higher credit scores as adults. Now think about it. A few early lessons in finance improved their financial health for decades to come. So you should commit to learning more about finance as well. Use courses, YouTube, books, podcasts, mentors, whatever it takes. Think about it as your investment, as your R&D or research and development. A biotech CEO I work with recently told me that they put in 89% of their budget into R&D. Can you imagine investing 89% of your entire income into your financial R&D, your financial education? Of course, you can't do that. Even if you put 10% of your time on building your financial chops, the rewards would be huge. Finally, we're at rule number 11, the most important one on the list. Invest in your relationships. What is the most valuable asset you own right now? It's not your car, house, or stocks. It's your network. When I graduated from business school, the United States was going through a major recession. Everybody was getting fired. No one was hiring. A lot of us were unemployed for a long time. And the only thing I remember focusing on was networking. I would call, I would email, meet people for coffee, just spend hours and hours on LinkedIn, on outreach. After about 6 months, I got hired. And that was because of someone in my network. And here's the thing, every single upward move in my career has happened because of my relationships, not just because of my skills. You're gonna need math skills, don't get me wrong, but it's your network that compounds your skills. It is a multiplier. Social capital, just like financial capital, has that compounding magic. And that's why LinkedIn data shows that 85% of jobs are filled through networking. And I talk to so many folks in their 20s who are spending hours and hours refining their resumes and posting it on sites. No one's gonna read them. So instead, try to spend all that time building relationships. Even if you do it for 2 or 4 hours a week, connect with an alum, your peer, as someone who's leading in your industry, a mentor. Reach out and don't be ashamed, don't be scared. What do you have to lose? And this is the most important insight about relationships. Don't just build them, invest in them. Focus on giving more than receiving. And that is a proven path to financial success. If you found this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on new videos like this every week.